Hey there everyone, this is Samuel Johnson and welcome back to the Lyoko Retrospectives. And today we're going to be discussing episode 78 of Code Lyoko, Lab Rat. And in this episode, Jeremy figures out how to virtualize the group into the real world. Kinda. Pretty much, what's going on is that ever since the group discovered the replica and figured out that if there's a replica, then that means there's another supercomputer out there that Xana's taking control of. Jeremy's been trying to I think I actually did mention this before. Jeremy's been trying to figure out how to virtualize the group into the real world so they can deal with it, and Jeremy thinks he's finally discovered something. As such, the group decides that night they're going to go to the supercomputer and pretty much go to the they're going to go to the pretty much he's going to send the group to the replica so that he can test it out. As such, the group all goes to the factory and does their whole thing, virtualizes into Lyoko, goes to the skid and travels through the World Wide Web through the digital sea. As such, they eventually make their way back to the replica and enter it, go through the forest sector, and pretty much while they're in there, they have to moor the skid to a tower in order to get it to work. And they manage to find one, and moor the skid in. However, while they're there, Jeremy detects that there's an activated tower somewhere in the replica, so the group very much realizes that if there's an activated tower, Xana's doing something, but Odd pretty much says, well, just virtualize this into the real world. That way we destroy this computer, it won't matter. And Jeremy's actually in agreement. As such, through the tower that they're moored to, Jeremy activates the tower that they're moored to, and manages to and ultimately he teleports Aelita and Odd into the real world, leaving Ulrich and Yumi behind to guard the skid in case Xana launches an attack, which, yeah, he would. As such, we then cut to where Jeremy sent Odd and Aelita, and while they're in the real world, we see that they're still in their Lyoko forms. Odd still has his cat look, he's still got the armor, he's still got the markings on his face, Aelita's still in her outfit, and pretty much the way Jeremy explains it is that how he teleports them is that essentially they're inhabiting the bodies of polymorphic specters, so to speak. Essentially, based on what I can tell, when Jeremy activates the tower, he uses the specters as baselines and then teleports their digital forms directly into them. So, if you want to get technical, they're still on the network. It's just that their minds are inhabiting these specters, which, considering how the polymorphic specters work whenever Xana creates them, it means that they can still have their regular powers. Like, Odd can still use his laser arrow, Aelita has her energy field, etc. So, in essence, like Jeremy said, they're now able to virtualize directly into the real world, all their powers and abilities intact. Unfortunately, the process can only work for so long, as when they virtualize into the real world, they only have like 13 minutes, so they've got to work fast. As such, it turns out that Odd and Aelita have wound up in a jungle, like in a completely different part of the world, because, like I said, it was nighttime when they started their mission, and wherever they are, it's daytime. So Odd and Aelita immediately begin searching for where the supercomputer is, and they find a lab just kind of in the middle of the forest. They manage to get into the lab, and sure enough, we see that the lab is full of scientists, but they're all possessed by Xana, or at the very least, or in some cases, they're specters. I don't know. It could be that they're the staff that work there, and Xana's taking control of them, or maybe they're specters. We don't know. Bottom line, Xana's the one running this place, so they gotta be wary. As such, they kind of sneak around a little, trying to find the computer, but in the meantime, as they're searching, they manage to find a lab where they managed to find like a little. It's one of those animal containment tubes, like, you know, they have it's like a simulated ecosystem where they keep animals like monkeys and so forth, like test monkeys or insects or whatever. They find one of those, and inside they find like a bunch of large spiders, many just kind of in the whole thing, and you know they're connected to Xana because on each of them is the Xana symbol. So, of course, Odd and Aelita are wondering what the heck is this? What's Xana planning? But ultimately that's kind of derailed when one of the scientists actually ends up finding them. They end up getting into a little fight, and eventually Aelita and Odd were able to knock out the scientist, and locked him essentially in a broom closet. But in the meantime, they still have to find the supercomputer, And to make matters worse, of course, just as Jeremy predicted, back on the replica, Xana launches an attack, sending 3 tarantulas and William to try and destroy it. So Odd and Yumi are able to put up a good fight. Or Ulrich and Yumi. I always get Ulrich and Odd's names mixed up. I'm so sorry. Ulrich and Yumi manage to destroy the tarantulas, but unfortunately William manages to devirtualize them both before they can do anything. As such, or before they can get rid of him. And as such, back in the factory in the jungle, Odd and Aelita manage to find the supercomputer for this place, and while they try destroying it, it turns out it's being held behind a shield. And to make matters worse, the lab that has the room that had the supercomputer was locked with an electronic lock, and in order to get it, Aelita had to hack the system. I'll get into how she did it later. And unfortunately, by unlocking that, she unlocked all these other doors, unfortunately letting the other scientists out, and so we can alert more. And even while Odd and Aelita get into the room to get the supercomputer, they're rushed by scientists. While they do ultimately manage to destroy the shield, before Odd can let off a laser arrow and blow the thing up, William deactivates the tower. Like, after he gets rid of Yumi, because after Ulrich was gone, it was just her and William. After he gets rid of her, he actually goes into the tower, and what I kind of like is the fact that he deactivates the tower the same way that Aelita would normally deactivate a tower, which I kind of like that. It makes sense why Xana would do that. After all, this replica is his creation. It's not something that Franz Hopper created. This is all him. This is all Xana. So of course he would give William admin privileges the way Aelita has them in Lyoko. So all he has to do is just go in and just do the whole float to the higher platform, scan hand, and boom. It'll do, except in this case, instead of code Lyoko, it's code Xana, which in this case doesn't destroy the replica, it just wrests control of the tower away from Jeremy back to Xana. Which, I like that. That kind of makes sense. It makes sense for him to do that. So, as such, unfortunately, before Odd can destroy the supercomputer, they're zapped out of the lab and back into the skid. As such, the group realizes this is not worth fighting for. They have to just abort mission and cut and run. As such, Aelita and Odd manage to get away, and it cuts to later when the group is back in the supercomputer. And they are pretty much telling them, we did the best we could, but we ultimately failed, so we shouldn't beat ourselves up over it. But pretty much, they realize they have to go back there. They have no idea what Xana is planning with those spiders, but it's Xana. It can't be anything good, so they gotta be prepared next time, which I like that. I actually do like that. They don't like beat themselves up over the loss. They just like, okay, we got all this valuable information. We need to learn from it and cut and try again another time. So, yeah, the group goes home, and the episode ends with Ulrich giving Yumi a gift because there was a subplot about him forgetting her birthday, and while he wanted to go get her a gift, he couldn't because he got detention. So Odd said he would do it because he was going to the store anyway to get something for Kiwi, and then it turns out that the gift he gave to Ulrich to give to Yumi was actually Kiwi's gift, while he actually has Yumi's. So we then cut to Yumi's house where she opens said gift and finds it's a chew toy. So, yeah. Overall, this is really good, though. I actually do really think this is a good episode. I'm not going to talk about the B plot with Ulrich and Yumi. That's there, but it really doesn't do anything for the story. It's just there to be more conflict. It doesn't really matter over the course of the episode. Yumi and Ulrich do occasionally butt heads because of it. Like, Ulrich's just trying to save his ass, and he knows why Yumi gets mad at him. But of course, he screws it up because Ulrich is kind of an idiot. But it doesn't really do much for the plot, and thankfully, Yumi and Ulrich's heads are not so far up their own asses that when trouble starts, they don't let that get in the way of anything. So I like that. But I like that we get to see more of Jeremy's progression, or more the progression of their mission to ultimately fight back against Xana with the virtualization of the real world. I never saw this when I first saw Code Lyoko when it was on TV. I fully admit that. I did watch bits of Season 4, but I watched none of the episodes where they virtualized into the real world. And I thought that was when I heard that they did that, I thought, that's really cool. I wish I had seen that. So actually being able to see it here for the first time, it's actually really nice, seeing them in all their powers and using all their powers and abilities in a real-world setting instead of just Lyoko. I actually like it. I like seeing that, and because they're not on Lyoko, some of their abilities and how they fight are kind of a little different. Like, for example, going back to when Odd and Aelita were fighting the scientist. During the fight, Odd got knocked aside after he shot a laser arrow at the scientist, and it missed. As such, while Odd is on the ground, the scientist directs his attention to Aelita by trying to blast her, and so she puts up a shield to defend herself. But while that's happening, Odd sees a metal rod on the ground, which he uses to try and smack the scientist while he's distracted. It ultimately fails because the scientist catches it. But I like that. It's smart thinking. We don't really see a lot of that on Lyoko because not a lot of stuff like that would be like they wouldn't have that kind of stuff on Lyoko. On Lyoko, everything is programmed digitally. They wouldn't leave like a stray there wouldn't be like a stray branch or a metal piece or something just lying around. You can improvise, but there's only so many things you can do. And so being able to see that and have them being able to use like real world tactics in the scenario against us, I like that. And to make matters, and then going back to, I mentioned how Aelita had to hack the terminal to the room that had the supercomputer in it in order to get in. How she did it was through like her singing ability. Like, you know how in Lyoko, if she concentrates and does that singing thing, she can manipulate the environment. Well, in the real world, of course, something like that wouldn't work, because while Xana can screw with a lot of things, I doubt he can create things from reality, so I'm guessing Aelita can't either. But the thing is, her ability still gives her control over technology. So she's able to do, so as such, she actually uses her ability to hack the terminal so that it unlocks. I like that. I genuinely like that, and it shows how the ability adapts in this different kind of scenario. I kind of like seeing that. Like, the rest of their powers are still the same. Odd still has his laser arrows, Aelita has the energy field. They look a little different in the real world, of course, but otherwise, it's still the same stuff. I like that, and it is cool seeing them explore the lab. It's a nice little recon, and it definitely gives you the creeps it's like, I guess one way to describe it maybe like in Metal Gear or Metroid, like going into an unknown environment and you feel alone. In this case, it's a lab in the middle of the forest, and everyone there is under Xana's control. So you got to be wary and figure out where you're going. It's unfamiliar territory. It's not like with Caddock. It's not Lyoko or any of the sectors. This is a new place that they have to visit. So I like seeing that. And while they do ultimately lose in the end, Xana manages to cut them off before they can get a victory, which, to be honest, I kind of like how their loss is kind of reflects how they typically beat Xana. You know, like how he causes trouble in the real world, and then just like seconds before he can get a total victory, they manage to deactivate the tower and it freezes. It's like that here. While Aelita and Odd have their backs against the wall, they do destroy the shield, and Odd was just about to shoot out a laser arrow to destroy it, but then William deactivates the tower and they get zapped back to the skid. I like that. I kind of like that. It's just like a dark mirror. And I could easily imagine Xana intentionally doing it like that just to be a dick, because he is that petty. He probably would do that. So, yeah, again, I like that. I like seeing how this progresses and seeing just the unfamiliar territory as they try and figure it out. And there's enough groundwork laid so that it does make you wonder what Xana is planning. What does he need this lab for? Why is he creating those tarantulas? And of course, and even though they lost here, they still got some valuable information. They know where the supercomputer is. They know that Xana's doing something out there. They don't know what, but it's something. So I like seeing them still try. So I like seeing the progress there. And again, I like seeing them make the progress to try and figure it out. And again, they still have no idea what's going. They still don't have a complete picture. But the fact that they have a few pieces is a good place to start. And they're still going to try again later. So yeah, I like that. Just some nice significant tension, and while they did lose, it was still a nice little experience. So yeah, overall, I really liked the episode. I liked seeing them be able to virtualize into the real world. I liked seeing them exploring the lab. I liked the sense of unease created by going to the unfamiliar territory combined with all the scientists. I like seeing the giant spiders because you wonder what Xana's plan is with there. And I do kind of like the sense of tension and how ultimately they do and how Xana does kind of get that slight win. Overall, yeah, it's a good episode, keeps things moving, keeps things exciting. So yeah, that's about it. Thank you for watching. I'm Samuel Johnson, and I'll see you next week. Take care.